Do you remember when food wasn't just about convenience or speed? When the kitchen was a place of experimentation, with every meal an opportunity to be creative, even a little bit wild? The 1970s, for all its quirks, was a time when food became a fascinating blend of old-world charm and futuristic convenience. It was an era of gelatin salads, fondue pots, and all sorts of strange concoctions, each one promising to be the next big thing. These weren't just meals. They were events. Families gathered around newfangled TV trays, and dinner parties felt like something out of a movie. So, let's take a trip back to the 1970s and explore 25 foods you haven't seen since the era of fondue parties and colorful gelatin molds. You might just find yourself rediscovering something truly delicious, and more importantly, unforgettable. Dish 1. Pineapple upside-down cake. Pineapple upside-down cake isn't just a dessert. It's a vibrant, nostalgic symbol of an era when kitchens were filled with creativity and simplicity. In the 1970s, this buttery, golden cake made frequent appearances at potlucks, dinner parties, and family dinners. With its glossy, caramelized pineapple rings and festive maraschino cherries, it was a dessert that brightened any occasion, offering not just a sweet treat, but a visual showstopper. It was a cake that brought an air of celebration with every slice. What made pineapple upside-down cake so special was its simplicity. Using humble pantry staples, flour, sugar, eggs, butter, and canned pineapple, it transformed ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. The 1970s marked a time when canned goods were seen as a modern convenience, and this cake was the perfect example of turning those items into a beautiful, indulgent treat. The canned pineapple took center stage, with its golden rings sitting atop the cake, slowly caramelizing as it baked to perfection. But it wasn't just about the flavors, it was about the dramatic presentation. Once baked, the cake was flipped over, revealing the shiny golden pineapple and the sticky caramelized syrup that had formed during baking. The maraschino cherries nestled in the middle of each pineapple ring added a festive pop of color, making the cake not only delicious, but also visually striking. Every slice felt like a little celebration. Ingredients and recipe. To make pineapple upside-down cake, you'll need a 20-ounce can of pineapple rings in syrup, maraschino cherries, 1/4 cup unsalted butter, 3/4 cup light brown sugar, 1½ cups all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 cup granulated sugar, 1/2 cup milk, 2 eggs, and 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. Start by preheating your oven to 350 degrees, 175 degrees. In a round cake pan, melt the butter over medium heat. Once the butter is melted, stir in the brown sugar to create a smooth caramel layer. Arrange the pineapple rings in the pan, placing a cherry in the center of each ring. In another bowl, mix the dry ingredients: flour, baking powder, and salt. In a separate bowl, whisk together the wet ingredients: sugar, eggs, milk, and vanilla. Combine both mixtures until smooth, then pour the batter over the pineapple arrangement. Bake for 35 to 40 minutes or until golden and a toothpick comes out clean. Let the cake cool for a few minutes before flipping it onto a plate to reveal the stunning caramelized pineapple. Reflection. Pineapple upside-down cake was more than just a dessert in the 1970s. It was an experience. It embodied both practicality and joy, with a touch of elegance. Whether served at a family gathering or as the star of a dinner party, this cake was a reminder that a little creativity could transform ordinary ingredients into something spectacular. Dish 2. Tuna noodle casserole. Tuna noodle casserole is one of those dishes that you probably either love or have a memory tied to it. Whether it's that time your mom made it on a busy weeknight or your aunt brought it to the family reunion. It's the unsung hero of many 1970s kitchens, a comfort food that captured the essence of convenience and creativity. With a pantry filled with canned tuna, peas, and a can of cream of mushroom soup, the dish became the go-to weeknight dinner. Despite its humble beginnings, tuna noodle casserole was often seen as a dish that bridged the gap between easy and elegant in a world increasingly filled with convenience foods. In the 1970s, casseroles ruled the kitchen, and this one stood out for its simplicity and satisfying creaminess. It wasn't a fancy dish, but it certainly had its own charm, especially when served with a side of crispy, golden brown breadcrumbs on top. Ingredients and recipe. To make this retro favorite, Gather a can of tuna in oil or water, your choice, egg noodles, frozen peas, a can of cream of mushroom soup, some shredded cheddar cheese, and a generous helping of breadcrumbs for topping. Begin by boiling your egg noodles until just tender. While they cook, drain the tuna and mix it in a large bowl with the peas, soup, and half of the shredded cheese. Stir to combine, adding salt and pepper to taste. Once the noodles are done, drain them and combine them with the tuna mixture. Pour everything into a greased casserole dish and top with the remaining cheese and a sprinkle of breadcrumbs for that crispy golden finish. Pop it into the oven at 350 degrees, 175 degrees for about 25 minutes, or until the cheese is bubbly and the top is perfectly toasted. What you'll get is a dish that's creamy, cheesy, and full of that warm, nostalgic flavor that speaks to the simplicity of the 1970s kitchen. Reflection. Tuna noodle casserole wasn't just a meal. It was a symbol of an era when people made do with what was available and still managed to create something comforting. It was a dish that reflected the resourcefulness of the time, taking humble ingredients and transforming them into something filling and satisfying. And while we might have moved on to fancier dishes, there's still something endearing about this no-frills casserole. It's a reminder of an era when the kitchen wasn't just about trends, but about feeding the family, often with a lot of love and very few ingredients. Dish 3. Ambrosia salad. Ambrosia salad is that strange yet lovable dessert that captures the freewheeling spirit of the 1970s. It's the kind of dish that, for better or worse, you either remember fondly or avoid at all costs, depending on your experience. Fluffy, sweet, and a little over the top, ambrosia salad was the epitome of the 1970s obsession with fruit cocktails, whipped cream, and marshmallows. It wasn't just a dessert. It was an event on the table, a colorful mixture of creamy sweetness that was almost too much, and yet you couldn't help but go back for more. This dish, with its delicate balance of sweetness and texture, was often served at holiday gatherings, potlucks, and family dinners. It wasn't really a salad in the sense that we think of salads today. It was more of a sugary dessert masquerading as a side dish. The bright colors of canned fruit mixed with marshmallows and shredded coconut made it feel festive, even if it was more about sugar than nutrition. But in the 1970s, that was part of its charm. After all, why not indulge in something that was pure sweetness? Ingredients and recipe. To make ambrosia salad, gather canned fruit cocktail, maraschino cherries, shredded coconut, miniature marshmallows, and sour cream or whipped topping, or both if you're feeling decadent. Begin by draining the canned fruit cocktail, ensuring that it's not too watery. In a large bowl, combine the fruit cocktail, maraschino cherries, halved or whole, shredded coconut, and marshmallows. Next, fold in a generous helping of whipped cream or sour cream, depending on your preference for creaminess. Stir gently until everything is coated and mixed evenly. Chill the salad in the refrigerator for an hour or two to allow the flavors to blend and the marshmallows to soften. When it's time to serve, you'll have a fluffy, sweet concoction that's a celebration in itself. The mixture of tropical fruits, creamy textures, and chewy marshmallows is as retro as they come, evoking memories of a time when such dishes were a sign of celebration and fun. Reflection. While ambrosia salad may seem odd to modern palates, it embodies the spirit of 1970s cooking perfectly. It was a time when flavor combinations were experimental, and there was an almost gleeful abandon in mixing fruits, marshmallows, and whipped cream. It wasn't gourmet, but it was something special. And in a world that often seems obsessed with trends and health-conscious recipes, there's something refreshing about embracing a dish that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's sweet, simple, and unapologetically fun. Dish 4, Jell-O salad. If there's one dish that defines the playful experimentation of the 1970s kitchen, it's the Jell-O salad. Brightly colored and jiggling with joy, these gelatin-based salads were the ultimate in retro kitsch. Whether it was molded into shapes, packed with fruit, or served as a multi-layered spectacle, Jell-O was everywhere. The 1970s saw a resurgence in gelatin-based recipes, and Jell-O salad became one of the most iconic. But what made this dish stand out wasn't just the wobble, it was the way it could take on any flavor, texture, or color you imagined. There was something inherently whimsical about Jell-O salads. Perhaps it was the way they seemed to defy the laws of food, fluffy yet firm, cool yet comforting. They appeared at every event, from bridal showers to family gatherings, their vibrant colors beckoning you to take a scoop. It wasn't just a salad, it was a conversation piece, a testament to the era's fascination with convenience, creativity, and, let's face it, a little bit of absurdity. Ingredients and recipe. To make a traditional Jell-O salad, you'll need a packet of your favorite Jell-O flavor. Cherry, lime, or orange were popular choices. A can of fruit cocktail, some sour cream or whipped cream, and a bit of cottage cheese. Begin by preparing the Jell-O according to package instructions. Once it's set, mix in the fruit cocktail, drained of excess syrup, along with the cottage cheese and a dollop of whipped cream for extra creaminess. Stir gently, ensuring everything is coated in the gelatin. Pour the mixture into a mold or bowl, then refrigerate until firm. When ready to serve, the Jell-O salad will maintain its jiggly texture and sweet, fruity flavor. Reflection: Jell-O salad was the embodiment of 1970s fun. It didn't take itself too seriously, nor did it aim for fine dining. It was, however, an essential part of family get-togethers and social events. The dish reflected the time's embrace of vibrant colors and unusual textures, as well as the desire to make even the simplest of ingredients feel celebratory. While it may seem quirky now, there's something comforting about its simplicity, its ability to turn a mundane meal into a festive occasion. Dish 5. Beef Stroganoff. Beef stroganoff is one of those dishes that feels elegant and indulgent, but isn't nearly as difficult to make as it might appear. This rich, creamy, and savory dish, often served over egg noodles or rice, was a staple at dinner parties in the 1970s. With its delicate balance of tender beef, tangy sour cream, and a rich, flavorful sauce, it was a symbol of sophistication and comfort, all rolled into one. It's hard to imagine the 1970s without beef stroganoff. It was the dish that could transform an average weeknight dinner into something feel like an occasion. Served in glossy cookbooks and on the tables of families trying to step up their culinary game, beef stroganoff carried the sense of excitement that the era's culinary scene was all about. It was the time when French-inspired dishes were becoming more mainstream, and beef stroganoff was the quintessential example of a dish that was simultaneously European and distinctly American. Ingredients and recipe. To make beef stroganoff, you'll need some tender beef, sirloin or tenderloin works best, onions, garlic, mushrooms, sour cream, beef broth, and a little butter. Start by slicing the beef into thin strips. Sauté the beef in butter over high heat until it's browned, then remove it from the pan and set aside. In the same pan, sauté the onions and garlic until fragrant, adding in sliced mushrooms once the onions soften. Pour in the beef broth and let it simmer, reducing slightly, before stirring in sour cream for that signature creamy finish. Add the beef back into the pan to warm through, then season with salt and pepper to taste. Serve the beef. Stroganoff over egg noodles or rice, and garnish with fresh parsley. Reflection: beef stroganoff embodies the 1970s fascination with elegance without the complexity. It wasn't a complicated dish, but it sure looked like it. With its rich sauce and tender beef, it brought an air of sophistication to the table, making it a beloved choice for everything from formal dinner parties to family meals. It's a perfect example of how the 1970s took inspiration from classic European flavors and turned them into something new, all while keeping that desire for convenience intact. Dish 6. Chicken a la King. Chicken a la King was the dish that embodied everything glamorous about mid-century dining. With its rich, creamy sauce and tender pieces of chicken, this dish felt like a luxurious, yet simple, escape from the routine. It was a favorite in the 1970s, making frequent appearances at dinner parties, bridal showers, and holiday gatherings, often served in a puff pastry shell or over a bed of rice or noodles. If there was ever a meal that made you feel sophisticated without the need for fancy skills, it was chicken a la King. In the 1970s, there was a fascination with fancy food, those dishes that looked like they required culinary expertise but were actually a breeze to make. Chicken a la King was the perfect example. With a base of cooked chicken, peas, and mushrooms, combined with a velvety cream sauce, it had a feel of extravagance that was deceptively easy to put together. This dish fit right into the era's love affair with convenience, as it could be whipped up with leftover chicken, a can of cream of mushroom soup, and a few staple ingredients from the pantry. Yet, it had the kind of charm that made it feel like a treat. Ingredients and recipe. To make chicken a la king, start with cooked, diced chicken, about 3 cups, a can of cream of mushroom soup, some frozen peas, sliced mushrooms, and butter. Begin by melting the butter in a large skillet over medium heat. Add the mushrooms and cook them until soft. Then stir in the soup and a little milk to create a creamy base. Add the chicken and peas, stirring to combine, and let everything heat through. Season with salt, pepper, and a dash of paprika for color. For an extra touch of luxury, stir in a spoonful of sherry or white wine. Allow the sauce to simmer until it thickens, then serve over toast, rice, or in a puff pastry shell. Reflection. Chicken a la king captured the 1970s appetite for both convenience and indulgence. It was a dish that could be made quickly but still felt special, worthy of being served at a celebration or a family dinner. There's something about its creamy texture and savory flavor that brings you back to a simpler time when cooking didn't have to be complex to be delicious. It was a dish that promised comfort and a little bit of luxury, making it an instant classic that has stood the test of time. Dish 7. Deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are one of those dishes that have a life of their own, constantly making the rounds at picnics, family gatherings, and holiday meals. These bite-sized snacks became a staple of 1970s cooking, appearing on nearly every buffet table. They were versatile, easy to prepare, and, most importantly, delicious. With their creamy, tangy filling and just the right amount of bite from mustard and paprika, deviled eggs were always a hit. The fact that they were so simple to make, yet so satisfying to eat, made them the perfect appetizer for everything from casual BBQs to more formal dinners. In the 1970s, deviled eggs were often given a bit of flair, with variations like adding relish, onions, or even bacon bits to the filling. Whether served as a side dish or a starter, they were part of the vibrant culinary landscape of the time, embodying the creativity that was so prevalent in the kitchen. Their popularity may have waned a bit in recent years, but they remain a timeless classic, never too fussy, but always dependable. Ingredients and recipe. To prepare deviled eggs, start by boiling a dozen eggs until they're hard cooked. Once cooled, peel the eggs and cut them in half lengthwise. Carefully remove the yolks and place them in a small bowl. Mash the yolks with a fork, and then mix in mayonnaise, a spoonful of mustard, a splash of vinegar, and a pinch of salt and pepper. For a little extra flavor, you can stir in some pickle relish or a few dashes of hot sauce. Spoon or pipe the mixture back into the egg whites, then sprinkle with paprika for a pop of color. Serve chilled, and enjoy the creamy tang of this retro favorite. Reflection. Deviled eggs have an uncanny ability to bring people together. Perhaps it's their bite-sized perfection, or the creamy, tangy filling that calls to mind so many gatherings. For those who grew up in the 1970s, deviled eggs were a comforting presence at every party and picnic. They're a dish that's both simple and satisfying, capturing the heart of an era when food was meant to be shared, enjoyed, and most importantly, easy to make. Dish 8. Shrimp cocktail. Shrimp cocktail was the epitome of glamour in the 1970s, an appetizer that felt fancy, sophisticated, and just a little bit decadent. You'd often find it presented on a fancy platter at a cocktail party, its pink shrimp perched delicately around a bowl of tangy cocktail sauce, ready to be dipped and devoured. This dish was quintessentially retro, evoking the glamour of mid-century dinner parties and the rise of seafood as a trend in American cuisine. Shrimp cocktail was both simple and luxurious, making it the perfect choice for an elegant starter. In the 1970s, people were fascinated by seafood, which was still somewhat exotic at the time. Shrimp, in particular, became a star ingredient, appearing at almost every upscale gathering. Served chilled and bathed in a tangy, zesty sauce, shrimp cocktail offered a refreshing contrast to the heavy, rich foods that dominated many dinner tables. It was a dish that felt like an event, whether you were indulging in it at a cocktail party or enjoying it as part of a holiday feast. Ingredients and recipe. To make shrimp cocktail, start by boiling shrimp in salted water with a few lemon slices and a pinch of Old Bay seasoning. Once cooked, let the shrimp cool completely. For the cocktail sauce, mix together ketchup, horseradish, lemon juice, and a dash of hot sauce, adjusting the amounts to your taste for spiciness and tang. Arrange the shrimp around a bowl of sauce, garnishing with a few lemon wedges for extra flair. Serve chilled and enjoy the delightful contrast between the tender shrimp and the zesty sauce. Reflection. Shrimp cocktail may seem simple now, but in the 1970s, it was the height of sophistication. Its cool, refreshing flavor and eye-catching presentation made it a favorite at any gathering. While its popularity has faded somewhat in recent years, there's no denying that shrimp cocktail will always have a place in our nostalgic hearts, reminding us of a time when the smallest details could make a meal feel like an unforgettable occasion. Dish 9. Fondue. If you're looking for a dish that embodies the 1970s in all its glory, look no further than fondue. This communal dish was the perfect way to bring people together, making a meal out of cheese, wine, and a little bit of fun. Fondue wasn't just about the food, it was about the experience. The melted cheese or chocolate in the pot, the act of dipping bread or fruit, and the laughter that accompanied it all made fondue a memorable part of 1970s dinner parties. It was an era of interactive dining, and fondue captured that spirit like no other dish. Fondue became the symbol of casual elegance during the 1970s. Whether served with rich, gooey cheese or with decadent melted chocolate, fondue was a way to elevate the everyday into something special. It was a dish that encouraged conversation and relaxation, where everyone gathered around the pot and dipped their favorite bites into the molten goodness. The ritual of fondue, whether cheese or chocolate, was like a social activity, making it the perfect dish for dinner parties and family get-togethers. Ingredients and recipe. To make classic cheese fondue, start with a mix of Gruyere and Emmental cheese, about 8 ounces of each, a clove of garlic, dry white wine, about 1 cup, a splash of lemon juice, and a bit of kirsch, cherry brandy, if you want to go authentic. Grate the cheese and rub the inside of a fondue pot with the garlic clove for extra flavor. Add the wine and lemon juice to the pot and heat gently until warm, then slowly stir in the cheese, 1 handful at a time, until it's smooth and creamy. For dipping, cut up crusty bread into cubes or add vegetables like cherry tomatoes and broccoli. Enjoy this cozy, communal meal. Reflection. Fondue was more than just a dish. It was an experience, a celebration of shared moments around the table. In the 1970s, it represented a kind of dining that was interactive, fun, and indulgent. It's a dish that allows you to slow down and savor the simple pleasure of melted cheese or chocolate. While its popularity has ebbed and flowed over the decades, the fondue pot will always be a symbol of an era when dining was a social occasion, filled with warmth and a touch of whimsy. Dish 10. Chicken Kiev. Chicken Kiev was the dish that made anyone feel like they were dining in a high-end restaurant during the 1970s. With its crispy golden exterior and buttery herb-filled center, it was a meal that dazzled in both flavor and presentation. Chicken Kiev had the elegance of French cooking, but it was approachable enough for home kitchens to replicate. It was a favorite at dinner parties, often served alongside a simple salad or perhaps some mashed potatoes, making it feel like a true gourmet experience without the complexity. The dish was an American adaptation of a classic Russian recipe, and in the 1970s, it became synonymous with sophistication. In a decade filled with a desire for both novelty and luxury, Chicken Kiev was the perfect fit. Its crispy exterior combined with the rich, garlicky butter inside made it a meal that was indulgent without being overwhelming. It felt like a restaurant-quality dish, but it was surprisingly easy to make, which is part of why it became so popular. Ingredients and recipe. To make Chicken Kiev, start with boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Flatten them slightly and create a pocket in each piece of chicken. For the filling, mix softened butter, garlic, fresh parsley, lemon juice, and a pinch of salt. Carefully stuff the butter mixture into each chicken breast and close them up with toothpicks. Coat the chicken in breadcrumbs, making sure to seal the stuffing inside. Heat some oil in a pan and fry the chicken until golden brown and crispy. Then finish baking in the oven at 350 degrees, 175 degrees for about 10 minutes. Serve with a sprinkle of parsley and a squeeze of lemon. Reflection. Chicken Kiev may have been a bit of a spectacle, but it was also a dish that brought an element of theater to the table. Its crispy shell, the surprise of the melted herb butter inside, it was a meal that left a lasting impression. In the 1970s, it was the dish you served when you wanted to wow your guests, making them feel like they had stepped into a fine dining establishment. While its popularity may have waned over time, Chicken Kiev will always be a reminder of an era when dinner was about more than just eating. It was about creating an experience. Dish 11. Sloppy Joes. Sloppy Joes are the ultimate comfort food, a messy, satisfying sandwich that quickly became a favorite during the 1970s. This humble dish captured the spirit of the era, cheap, hearty, and filled with flavor. Sloppy Joes were the kind of meal you could whip up on a weeknight when you wanted something quick, but still filling. They had the power to turn an average dinner into a family favorite, and you could always count on them to please even the pickiest eaters. In the 1970s, sloppy joes found their way into American kitchens as an affordable yet crowd-pleasing meal. The appeal was simple: ground beef simmered in a tangy tomato-based sauce, served on soft buns that quickly became a delicious, saucy mess. It wasn't gourmet, but it didn't need to be. Sloppy joes were about fun, comfort, and the kind of down-to-earth flavor that sticks with you. It was a meal that felt like home, no matter how chaotic the day had been. Ingredients and recipe. To make sloppy joes, you'll need ground beef, about 1 pound, onion, green bell pepper, tomato paste, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, mustard, brown sugar, and a little salt and pepper. Start by browning the ground beef in a skillet, breaking it up as it cooks. Once it's browned, add finely chopped onion and bell pepper and cook until softened. Stir in the tomato paste, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and mustard, then add a tablespoon of brown sugar to balance the acidity. Let the mixture simmer for about 20 minutes, allowing the flavors to meld together. Season with salt and pepper to taste. Once your sauce is thickened and flavorful, serve it on toasted hamburger buns for the perfect sloppy bite. Top with a little extra ketchup or mustard if desired, and dig in. Just be sure to have napkins handy. Reflection. Sloppy joes were the epitome of 70s comfort food, satisfying hunger with little more than a few pantry staples. They were versatile, fun, and easy to prepare, perfect for busy families or casual get-togethers. While the dish has had its ups and downs in popularity, there's something undeniably charming about it. The messiness, the saucy goodness, and the familiar taste bring a rush of nostalgia, reminding us of simpler times when a good meal didn't need to be complicated, just delicious. Dish 12. Swedish meatballs. Swedish meatballs were an elegant dish that became a beloved part of 1970s American cuisine, often served at festive gatherings or as part of an upscale dinner. These tender meatballs, made with a mixture of beef and pork, were seasoned with a blend of spices like nutmeg and allspice, giving them a distinctive, comforting flavor. Smothered in a creamy, rich gravy, they were the perfect balance of savory and luxurious. During the 1970s, as the American palate became more adventurous, there was a growing interest in Scandinavian and other European cuisines. Swedish meatballs gained popularity through Swedish restaurants and even the famous Swedish furniture store IKEA, where they became a symbol of European culinary sophistication. The dish embodied the time's love for comfort food with a touch of class. Whether served over mashed potatoes or with a side of lingonberry jam, Swedish meatballs became a dish that felt both comforting and cosmopolitan. Ingredients and recipe. For Swedish meatballs, combine 1 pound of ground beef and 1/2 pound of ground pork in a large bowl. Add 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, 1/4 cup of milk, 1 egg, 1 small grated onion, salt, pepper, and a pinch of nutmeg. Mix everything together and roll into small meatballs, about 1 inch in diameter. Brown the meatballs in a skillet over medium heat, cooking them until they're browned on all sides. Remove the meatballs and set aside. For the gravy, melt 2 tablespoons of butter in the same skillet. Add 2 tablespoons of flour and cook for about 1 minute, whisking constantly. Gradually add 1 cup of beef broth, stirring to create a smooth sauce. Stir in 1/2 cup of heavy cream and bring to a simmer. Return the meatballs to the pan and cook for an additional 10 minutes until the meatballs are fully cooked and the gravy is thickened. Serve the meatballs with mashed potatoes or egg noodles and garnish with fresh parsley. Reflection. Swedish meatballs were one of those dishes that elevated the ordinary meal into something special. They represented the culinary shift of the 1970s. A time when comfort food didn't have to be plain. It could be sophisticated too. With their rich gravy and delicate seasoning, these meatballs remain a beloved classic, reminding us of a time when we didn't shy away from indulging in something hearty and flavorful. Swedish meatballs were all about savoring the moment and enjoying a meal that was both simple and luxurious. Dish 13. Meatloaf. Meatloaf is the quintessential comfort food, the sort of dish you can always count on to deliver warmth, sustenance, and a sense of home. This dish was a staple in 1970s kitchens, offering an easy way to feed a family on a budget while still creating a hearty, satisfying meal. Meatloaf, with its savory blend of ground beef, breadcrumbs, and seasonings, was the meal that could be dressed up with a little ketchup on top or served with mashed potatoes and green beans for a classic dinner. In the 1970s, meatloaf was more than just a dinner, it was a versatile dish. It could be customized with different fillings like onions, cheese, or bell peppers, or topped with everything from tomato sauce to a blanket of crispy bacon. Whether served as a loaf or made into individual meatballs, meatloaf was a comforting dish that filled bellies and brought families to the table. Ingredients and recipe. To make a classic meatloaf, start with 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Add 1 cup of breadcrumbs, 1/2 cup of milk, 1 small chopped onion, 1 beaten egg, 2 tablespoons of ketchup, and salt and pepper to taste. Mix everything together, making sure it's combined well, and then shape the mixture into a loaf and place it in a greased baking dish. For the topping, spread another layer of ketchup or tomato sauce over the top of the meatloaf. Bake at 350 degrees, 175 degrees for about 45 minutes, or until the meatloaf is cooked through and the top is caramelized. Once it's done, let it rest for a few minutes before slicing. Serve with mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables, and a slice of buttered bread for the perfect meal. Reflection: meatloaf was the ultimate no-fuss, family-friendly dish of the 1970s. It was a comforting constant during an era when food needed to be both economical and filling. The dish had a nostalgic, homespun charm, and it's still a favorite in many kitchens today. While meatloaf might seem simple, it's packed with flavor and heart, and its versatility allowed it to take on a personal touch in every home. For many, meatloaf was a reminder that the best meals don't need to be complicated, they just need to be made with love. Dish 14, Baked Alaska. Baked Alaska was the dessert that was as dramatic as it was delicious, a flamboyant, show-stopping finale to a lavish 1970s dinner party. This dessert was made up of layers of cake, ice cream, and meringue, all baked to perfection. It was the epitome of indulgence, combining the rich creaminess of ice cream with the light, fluffy meringue and the slightly firm cake base. When served, Baked Alaska was often flambéed at the table, creating a moment of theater that left guests wide-eyed in amazement. In the 1970s, this dessert was a symbol of sophisticated dining, perfect for impressing guests or celebrating a special occasion. Its roots trace back to the 19th century, but by the 1970s, Baked Alaska had become synonymous with luxury and extravagant dinner parties. The showmanship of flaming the dessert at the table was part of the fun, adding an element of surprise to what was already an indulgent treat. Ingredients and recipe. To make Baked Alaska, start by preparing a cake base, typically a sponge or pound cake. Slice the cake into even layers and set them in a baking dish. Spread a layer of your favorite ice cream, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry are popular choices, over the cake. For the meringue, beat 4 egg whites with 1/2 cup of sugar until stiff peaks form. Spread the meringue generously over the ice cream, completely covering it. Bake the dessert at 500 degrees, 260 degrees, for about 3 to 5 minutes, just until the meringue is golden brown. For extra drama, you can flambe the dessert at the table with a little brandy or rum. Reflection: Baked Alaska was more than just a dessert, it was an experience. The grandeur of the meringue, the cold ice cream hidden inside, and the fiery finish made it a memorable part of 1970s dining culture. It was a dish that captured the time's flair for indulgence and entertainment, reminding us of a time when food was meant to dazzle. Though Baked Alaska might not be as common today, it remains a symbol of an era when the art of the dinner party was about creating moments as much as it was about the food itself. Dish 15, Beef Wellington. Beef Wellington is the ultimate expression of luxury, a show-stopping dish that combines tender beef with savory mushrooms and a flaky pastry crust. This dish was the star of many 1970s dinner parties, where it was often served to impress guests or mark a special occasion. Beef Wellington wasn't just about the rich, flavorful beef, though that was certainly the highlight. It was about the artistry of combining all the elements into a single, perfectly baked creation. In the 1970s, it was a dish that signified sophistication and elegance. The dish's origins date back to the 19th century, but it took on a life of its own in the 1970s, becoming a hallmark of fine dining in both restaurants and home kitchens. It was the kind of dish you'd reserve for a celebratory meal, and it carried a sense of grandeur and accomplishment. The beef was enveloped in layers of pâté and mushroom duxelles, then wrapped in a buttery, flaky puff pastry, making it both indulgent and visually stunning. Ingredients and recipe. To prepare Beef Wellington, start with a 2-pound center-cut beef tenderloin, which you'll sear in hot oil to develop a rich, brown crust. Allow the beef to cool completely. Meanwhile, prepare the mushroom duxelle by finely chopping mushrooms and sautéing them with shallots, garlic, and thyme and butter until the mixture is dry. Then, spread a thin layer of pâté or liver mousse over the cooled beef. Next, spread the mushroom mixture over the pâté. Roll out puff pastry on a floured surface and carefully wrap the beef and its filling in the pastry. Brush the pastry with egg wash and bake at 425 degrees to 220 degrees for about 40 minutes or until the pastry is golden brown and the beef reaches your desired level of doneness. Let it rest before slicing and serving with a rich sauce, such as a red wine reduction. Reflection. Beef Wellington was the pinnacle of 70s fine dining, a dish that exuded both elegance and richness. Its layers of flavors and textures were the perfect fit for a time when dining was an event, not just a meal. While it may seem like a daunting dish to make today, Beef Wellington's legacy lives on as a reminder of an era when cooking was as much about spectacle as it was about taste. It's the ultimate celebration of indulgence, luxury, and the joy of entertaining. Dish 16, Cherries Jubilee. Cherries Jubilee is one of those dishes that perfectly encapsulates the extravagant spirit of the 1970s. The very act of flambeing the dessert at the table added an element of drama that made dinner parties feel like a theatrical event. Originally created in the 19th century to honor Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, this flamboyant dessert made its way into the American culinary scene during the 1970s, where it became the go-to choice for upscale gatherings. Cherries Jubilee isn't just about the flavor, though the sweet, tart cherries, soaked in rich brandy and served over vanilla ice cream, are absolutely delicious. It's about the spectacle, the fiery flair that made the dish feel like something truly special. The 1970s were a time when dinner parties and entertaining at home were important social occasions. People loved to go all out with dishes that would impress, and Cherries Jubilee fit the bill perfectly. When served at the table with the flames rising, it was impossible not to feel a little awestruck. It was the kind of dessert that made people gasp and clap, adding a sense of excitement to an evening's end. Ingredients and recipe. To make Cherries Jubilee, you'll need 2 cups of fresh or frozen cherries, pitted, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of brandy, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and vanilla ice cream. Begin by placing the cherries and sugar into a saucepan over medium heat. Stir occasionally until the sugar dissolves and the cherries release their juices, creating a syrupy sauce. Add the lemon juice and simmer for about 5 minutes to allow the flavors to meld. Once the sauce is ready, add the brandy. Here's where the magic happens. Carefully light the brandy on fire using a long lighter or match. Allow the flames to subside as the alcohol burns off, leaving behind a rich, flavorful sauce. Serve the warm cherries and syrup over a scoop of vanilla ice cream, ensuring the ice cream is melting into the sweet, fiery sauce. Reflection. Cherries Jubilee may have been a bit of a showstopper, but it was also a dessert that tasted like pure luxury. The balance of sweet cherries, tangy lemon, and the depth of the brandy made for a harmonious, indulgent combination. Beyond its rich flavor, the flambeing process added an element of excitement that made the dish unforgettable. It was a fitting end to any dinner party, and while it may not be as common today, it remains a nostalgic symbol of the theatrical dining culture of the 1970s. Dish 17, Clam Chowder. Clam chowder is a comforting, hearty soup that has stood the test of time, but in the 1970s, it became a staple of both home kitchens and fine dining. There's something incredibly satisfying about the smooth, creamy base paired with tender clams and vegetables. Whether served as a starter at a fancy restaurant or a cozy meal at home, clam chowder was the perfect embodiment of the 1970s love for rich, indulgent food. The dish is often associated with New England, where it originated, but by the 1970s, it had spread across the United States, beloved for its simplicity and hearty flavor. The 1970s were an era of rising interest in regional American cuisine, and clam chowder became a symbol of New England's culinary pride. The soup was rich and creamy, with the briny sweetness of the clams balancing out the heaviness of the milk and butter. It was the ideal dish for family gatherings, often served with a side of freshly baked bread to soak up the flavorful broth. It may have seemed like comfort food, but it had an elegance that made it perfect for dinner parties as well. Ingredients and recipe. To make classic New England clam chowder, you'll need 1 pound of fresh or canned clams with juice, 3 large potatoes, peeled and diced, 1 medium onion, chopped, 2 celery stalks, chopped, 4 cups of chicken or vegetable broth, 1/2 cups of heavy cream, 4 tablespoons of butter, and salt and pepper to taste. Start by melting the butter in a large pot over medium heat. Add the onions and celery and cook until softened. Stir in the potatoes and broth, bringing it to a simmer. Let the soup cook for about 20 minutes, or until the potatoes are tender. Add the clams with their juice, then pour in the heavy cream and stir to combine. Allow the soup to simmer for another 10 minutes, letting the flavors meld together. Season with salt and pepper to taste and serve hot. garnished with a sprinkle of fresh parsley or a dash of paprika. Reflection. Clam chowder represents the 1970s love of hearty, satisfying meals that made you feel like you were being wrapped in warmth. This dish could be eaten in any season, but it was especially comforting during the colder months, evoking a sense of home and nostalgia. The simplicity of the ingredients, clams, potatoes, and cream, belies the richness of the flavor. For many, clam chowder was a dish that symbolized the joy of sharing a meal with loved ones, offering both comfort and culinary pleasure. Dish 18, shrimp scampi. Shrimp scampi was the dish of choice for those who wanted to indulge in a little seafood luxury without leaving home. Popularized in the 1970s as part of the growing fascination with Italian-American cuisine, shrimp scampi became a staple of dinner parties and romantic meals. The combination of tender shrimp, garlic, butter, and white wine made this dish a decadent yet relatively simple option for cooks who wanted to impress without breaking a sweat. In the 1970s, Italian cuisine was experiencing a renaissance in the US, with dishes like shrimp scampi taking center stage. It was fresh and full of flavor, yet easy enough to make for a weeknight dinner. The allure of shrimp scampi lay in its simplicity. A few fresh ingredients, garlic, shrimp, butter, and wine, were all it took to create a dish that tasted like something you might find in a high-end Italian restaurant. Ingredients and recipe. To prepare shrimp scampi, you'll need 1 pound of large shrimp, peeled and deveined, 4 tablespoons of butter, 4 cloves of garlic, minced, 1/2 cup of white wine, 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, and 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. Start by heating the butter in a large skillet over medium heat. Add the garlic and cook until fragrant, about 1 minute. Stir in the shrimp and cook for 2-3 minutes on each side until they turn pink and are fully cooked. Once the shrimp is cooked, add the white wine and lemon juice to the skillet. Let the sauce simmer for another 2 to 3 minutes, allowing the flavors to meld together. Sprinkle with fresh parsley and serve hot over a bed of pasta or with crusty bread to soak up the delicious sauce. Reflection. Shrimp scampi was the perfect dish for the 1970s, blending sophistication with simplicity. It was a dish that could easily transform an ordinary meal into something special. The combination of garlic, butter, and wine felt luxurious, and yet the preparation was straightforward enough for any home cook to master. Even today, shrimp scampi remains a popular choice for those seeking a meal that feels elegant without requiring too much effort. It's a dish that still evokes a sense of indulgence and romance, reminding us of an era when dinner was a celebration. Dish 19, egg salad. Egg salad is one of those dishes that might not get much attention today, but in the 1970s, it was a reliable staple for picnics, sandwiches, and light lunches. Simple, inexpensive, and packed with protein, egg salad was beloved for its versatility. Whether served on a soft sandwich bun, as a filling for pita bread, or simply as a side dish, egg salad made the most of its modest ingredients: hard-boiled eggs, mayo, mustard, and a few seasonings. During the 1970s, egg salad was often prepared in large batches for family picnics or casual gatherings. It was a dish that could be made ahead of time, which made it a convenient choice for busy families. It was also one of those meals that could be easily adjusted to suit individual tastes. Some added pickles, others added relish or onions. Egg salad wasn't meant to be flashy, but its creamy, comforting flavor made it a timeless favorite. Ingredients and recipe. To make classic egg salad, you'll need 6 hard-boiled eggs, 1/4 cup of mayonnaise, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar, and salt and pepper to taste. Start by peeling the eggs and chopping them into small pieces. In a separate bowl, mix the mayonnaise, mustard, and vinegar. Stir the chopped eggs into the mayo mixture, making sure everything is well coated. Season with salt and pepper to taste, and for an extra twist, add a little chopped onion or relish if you prefer. Serve the egg salad on toasted bread as a sandwich filling or on a bed of lettuce for a lighter option. Garnish with a sprinkle of paprika for color. Reflection. Egg salad was the epitome of convenience, a dish that was affordable, easy to prepare, and full of comfort. It was the sort of thing you could throw together on a busy day, yet it still felt like a satisfying meal. While it may not have been a glamorous dish, egg salad has a humble charm that makes it a nostalgic reminder of 1970s home cooking. It's one of those timeless classics that, despite its simplicity, always feels like a little piece of home. Dish 20, croque monsieur. Croque monsieur is a French-inspired sandwich that became popular in the United States during the 1970s, when American diners were becoming more adventurous with European flavors. With its combination of ham, melted cheese, and creamy bechamel sauce, croque monsieur was the epitome of simple elegance. It was comfort food with a touch of sophistication, a dish that could turn an ordinary lunch into something special. In the 1970s, there was a growing interest in French cuisine, and croque monsieur was an accessible way to bring a taste of Paris into American kitchens. Whether served as a light lunch or as part of a casual dinner, this cheesy, melty sandwich never failed to impress. It was indulgent yet straightforward, with a balance of textures that made it both satisfying and comforting. Ingredients and recipe. To prepare croque monsieur, you'll need 4 slices of thick bread, 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 slices of ham, 4 slices of Gruyere or Swiss cheese, and 1/2 cup of bechamel sauce, made from butter, flour, milk, and a pinch of nutmeg. Start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees and 200 degrees. Spread butter on each slice of bread, then place a slice of cheese on 2 of the pieces of bread. Top with a slice of ham, followed by another slice of cheese. Assemble the sandwich and place it on a baking sheet. Pour the bechamel sauce over the top and bake for 10 to 15 minutes, or until the sandwich is golden and the cheese is melted and bubbling. Reflection. Croque monsieur was one of those dishes that felt like a little indulgence, even on an ordinary day. It brought a bit of French flair to the American table, combining the comfort of a grilled cheese sandwich with the luxury of melted cheese and ham. In the 1970s, it was a reminder that food didn't have to be complicated to feel sophisticated. It's a timeless dish that continues to capture the spirit of casual elegance, making it as beloved today as it was during its heyday. Dish 21. Sautéed mushrooms. Sautéed mushrooms are the perfect example of a dish that takes the simplest of ingredients and elevates them to something special. In the 1970s, these flavorful little fungi found their way into every kitchen, often served as a side dish or as an accompaniment to meats like steak or chicken. The beauty of sautéed mushrooms lies in their simplicity. The rich, earthy flavor of the mushrooms, combined with butter, garlic, and herbs, created a dish that was both comforting and elegant. The 1970s were a time when people were beginning to explore more refined flavors, and mushrooms were no longer just a garnish or an afterthought. With the rise of gourmet cooking and the popularity of French cuisine, sautéed mushrooms became a favorite for home cooks who wanted to impress without the fuss. Whether served alongside a perfectly cooked steak or as a topping for a simple plate of pasta, sautéed mushrooms were versatile enough to go with nearly any meal, but their deep, savory flavor made them stand out. Ingredients and recipe. To make sautéed mushrooms, you'll need 1 pound of fresh mushrooms, preferably cremini or button, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 2 cloves of garlic, minced, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley, chopped, and salt and pepper to taste. Begin by cleaning the mushrooms gently with a damp cloth and slicing them thinly. Heat the butter and olive oil together in a large skillet over medium-high heat. Once the butter has melted, add the mushrooms, stirring them occasionally to ensure even cooking. Cook the mushrooms for about 5 to 7 minutes, or until they're browned and have released their juices. Add the garlic and cook for another minute, letting it become fragrant. Season with salt and pepper to taste, and sprinkle with fresh parsley before serving. Reflection. Sautéed mushrooms were a symbol of the growing appreciation for natural, earthy flavors in the 1970s. They were an easy way to add sophistication to any meal, and the simplicity of the preparation allowed the mushroom's natural flavor to shine through. These mushrooms weren't just a side dish. They were an invitation to savor the moment, adding a touch of elegance to even the most casual dinner. For many, sautéed mushrooms were a beloved reminder of a time when food didn't need to be overly complicated to make an impact. Dish 22. Zucchini fritters. Zucchini fritters are a beloved dish that has stood the test of time, but in the 1970s, they were part of a larger trend in American kitchens where home cooks were looking for creative ways to incorporate garden-fresh vegetables into their meals. The zucchini boom of the 1970s saw the vegetable go from a humble garden item to a star ingredient in everything from casseroles to baked goods. Zucchini fritters were one of the simplest and most delicious ways to enjoy this versatile summer squash. What made zucchini fritters so popular in the 1970s was how easy they were to make. Grated zucchini was combined with eggs, flour, and seasoning, then fried into crispy golden patties. The result was a savory, satisfying dish that could be served as an appetizer, side dish, or even as a light main course. Zucchini fritters captured the essence of 1970s cooking. Simple, flavorful, and resourceful. They were perfect for using up an abundance of summer zucchini, making them both economical and practical. Ingredients and recipe. For zucchini fritters, you'll need 2 medium zucchinis, 1/4 cup of grated onion, 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, salt and pepper to taste, and vegetable oil for frying. Start by grating the zucchinis using a coarse grater. Place the grated zucchini in a clean kitchen towel or cheesecloth and squeeze out the excess moisture. In a bowl, combine the zucchini, grated onion, eggs, flour, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. Stir until everything is well incorporated. Heat about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in a skillet over medium heat. Drop spoonfuls of the zucchini mixture into the hot oil, flattening them slightly with the back of the spoon. Cook the fritters for 3 to 4 minutes on each side, or until they're golden brown and crispy. Drain them on paper towels to remove excess oil and serve hot with a dollop of sour cream or a sprinkle of fresh herbs. Reflection. Zucchini fritters were a beloved dish in the 1970s because they were simple, versatile, and packed with flavor. They represented a shift toward using fresh, in-season produce in creative ways, and their crispy exterior and tender interior made them a comforting yet light option. Whether served as a side dish or enjoyed as a light lunch, zucchini fritters were a favorite during the summer months and remain a nostalgic reminder of the era's resourceful approach to cooking. Dish 23, pâté de foie gras. Pâté de foie gras is the dish that screams luxury. This rich, buttery pâté, made from the liver of a duck or goose, was a symbol of indulgence during the 1970s, a time when people were increasingly drawn to the finer things in life. While foie gras may seem extravagant today, in the 1970s, it was often served as an appetizer at high-end dinner parties or as part of a lavish spread at holiday feasts. Foie gras had been a part of French cuisine for centuries, but it became particularly fashionable in the US during the 1970s. During this era, Americans were eager to experience sophisticated European cuisine, and foie gras, with its silky texture and intense, savory flavor, quickly became synonymous with fine dining. The rich, melt-in-your-mouth quality of pâté de foie gras made it a standout dish, and its presence at a dinner party immediately conveyed a sense of wealth and extravagance. Ingredients and recipe. To make a classic pâté de foie gras, you'll need 1 pound of fresh foie gras, 1/2 cup of brandy or cognac, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Begin by seasoning the foie gras with salt, pepper, and nutmeg. In a pan, heat the brandy or cognac and carefully warm the foie gras in the liquid for about 2 to 3 minutes. Transfer the foie gras to a food processor and blend until smooth. Taste and adjust the seasoning if needed. Once the pâté is smooth, transfer it into a tureen or serving dish, smoothing the top with a spatula. Cover it with plastic wrap and refrigerate for several hours, allowing the flavors to meld. When ready to serve, slice the pâté thinly and serve with toasted baguette slices or crackers. Reflection. Pâté de foie gras was the epitome of indulgence in the 1970s. It was a dish reserved for special occasions, a symbol of fine dining and luxury. While it may not be as universally loved today due to ethical concerns, it remains a reminder of a time when extravagant foods were a sign of status and sophistication. For many who dined on foie gras in the 1970s, it wasn't just about the taste. It was about creating a memorable, indulgent experience that transported diners to a world of French elegance. Dish 24, French onion soup. French onion soup is the kind of dish that makes you feel like you're seated in a charming Parisian bistro, even if you're just sitting in your own kitchen. This rich, comforting soup, made with caramelized onions, savory broth, and a layer of melted cheese, became a staple in American homes during the 1970s as the country developed a greater taste for French cuisine. It was a perfect dish for dinner parties, where its rich flavors and elegant presentation could impress guests without requiring hours of preparation. The 1970s saw a rise in interest in French food, and French onion soup became an accessible way for American cooks to experience something sophisticated and luxurious. What made French onion soup so irresistible was the balance of deeply caramelized onions, rich beef broth, and the decadent, gooey cheese on top. It was the kind of dish that felt like a warm embrace on a cold evening. Ingredients and recipe. To make French onion soup, you'll need 4 large yellow onions, thinly sliced, 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 4 cups of beef broth, 1 cup of dry white wine, 1 teaspoon of fresh thyme, 2 slices of French bread, and 2 cups of shredded Gruyere cheese. Start by melting the butter in a large pot over medium heat. Add the onions and cook, stirring occasionally, for about 30 minutes, allowing the onions to caramelize and become golden brown. Once the onions are caramelized, add the wine, scraping up any brown bits from the bottom of the pot. Pour in the beef broth and add the thyme. Bring the soup to a simmer and cook for 20 minutes. While the soup is simmering, toast the French bread slices in the oven until they're crisp. To serve, ladle the soup into bowls, top with a slice of toasted bread, and sprinkle with Gruyere cheese. Place the bowls under the broiler for 2 to 3 minutes, until the cheese is melted and bubbly. Reflection: French onion soup was a beloved dish in the 1970s because it was both comforting and impressive. It brought the flavors of France into the American kitchen in a way that felt accessible, even for novice cooks. The caramelized onions, rich broth, and melting cheese created a perfect harmony of flavors, making it a dish that could warm both the body and soul. French onion soup was a reminder that food could be both simple and sophisticated, and that sometimes the best meals come from taking your time and savoring the process. Dish 25. Stuffed bell peppers. Stuffed bell peppers are the kind of dish that's as wholesome as it is versatile. This hearty meal was a favorite in many 1970s homes, especially during the fall when bell peppers were in season. Stuffed with a savory filling of ground meat, rice, and spices, these colorful peppers made for a satisfying and filling meal that could easily feed a crowd. The beauty of stuffed bell peppers lay in their simplicity, as they could be made with whatever ingredients were on hand, beef, turkey, or even a vegetarian filling, and still be delicious. In the 1970s, stuffed peppers were often seen as a clever way to use up leftovers, making them an economical option for busy families. They were also a fun and visually appealing dish, as the peppers' vibrant colors added a pop of brightness to the dinner table. Whether served for a family dinner or as part of a larger spread, stuffed bell peppers were a meal that everyone could enjoy. Ingredients and recipe. For stuffed bell peppers, you'll need 4 large bell peppers, 1 pound of ground beef or turkey, 1/2 cup of cooked rice, 1 small onion, chopped, 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 cup of shredded cheese. Start by preheating your oven to 375 degrees, 190 degrees so. Cut the tops off the bell peppers and remove the seeds. In a skillet, brown the ground meat and sauté the onion until soft. Stir in the cooked rice, diced tomatoes, oregano, and garlic powder, and cook for 5 minutes. Stuff the mixture into the prepared bell peppers, then place them in a baking dish. Top each pepper with shredded cheese and bake for 25 to 30 minutes until the peppers are tender and the cheese is melted. Reflection: Stuffed bell peppers were a perfect example of 1970s home cooking. Affordable, adaptable, and full of flavor. They were a dish that could be easily customized to suit personal preferences, making them a favorite for busy families. Whether made with beef, chicken, or a vegetarian filling, stuffed peppers had a comforting heartiness that made them a timeless favorite. Even today, they remain a symbol of the practicality and creativity that defined 1970s home-cooked meals. As we look back at the culinary landscape of the 1970s, it's clear that the decade was one of both innovation and indulgence in the kitchen. It was a time when food became a way to express creativity, from the flamboyant drama of dishes like Cherry's Jubilee to the comforting simplicity of meatloaf and tuna noodle casserole. The 1970s were defined by a unique blend of convenience and sophistication, an era when convenience foods made life easier, but dinner parties and home cooking remained an important part of the social fabric. Many of the dishes from this time were born out of a desire to make meals that felt special, even in an era of changing tastes and shifting food trends. Dishes like beef stroganoff and chicken a la king showcased a growing interest in European-inspired flavors, while classics like sloppy joes and deviled eggs reminded us of the comfort of simple, hearty meals that could feed a crowd. And who could forget the rise of fondue, where the act of sharing a meal became a memorable experience in itself. What's fascinating about these dishes is that they weren't just food, they were part of a larger cultural shift. In a decade filled with experimentation and a growing fascination with convenience, food became a form of expression, a way to connect with others, and a source of nostalgia that still resonates today. Many of these dishes may not be as common on modern tables, but they continue to remind us of a time when food wasn't just about eating, it was about sharing stories, celebrating moments, and creating lasting memories. So, whether you're revisiting an old favorite or trying something new, these 25 dishes from the 1970s offer a delicious taste of the past, reminding us of an era when food was both a celebration and a comfort.